evening, everybody, and welcome to the BSR MX5 Trophy, round 7. Well, round 7, you're right, at Sonoma tonight. And, well, I'd like to welcome you along. My name is Jack Oliphant, and I'm, well, welcome. I'm sorry, I've got my words all muddled up. I am pleased to say that I'm joined by Ed May, as per usual. Ed, how the devil are you?
I'm doing brilliantly. Thank you very much, Jack. And yeah, looking forward to this round 7 of the BSR MX5 Trophy. 4 races on the cards here at Sonoma Raceway, as you can see by the track map. Very technical. What the track map doesn't tell you, though, is just how hilly it is. There's a lot of undulations, the rise through turn 1 and 2, and then basically all the way up through turns 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then it's basically a straight plummet down. Little rise as you get up to the long sweeping left hand you can see in the middle of the circuit. And then that last sector is relatively flat, but you still need to deal with a little bit of a downhill, uphill moment through these long S's. Real overtaking action will probably be seen towards the end of the lap there. Into that tight hairpin you can see. I think quite a lot of the drivers are going through at the moment as we get onto our qualifying laps. Currently headed by Lars Fischer, who's gotten off to a flying start in this qualifying session. You can see him just in behind Jason Cooper. Slipstream helping these drivers out, as they always do in the MX5s. We also have some newcomers to the championship. We'll get to that in a minute as we see Adam Delmont and Adam McNally go to the top of the timing sheets by some distance as well, actually. One of the newcomers there has just gone second fastest. That's John Sylvester. Happy to see more and more entrants coming into this championship, aren't we, Jack? Gives us a bit more excitement for those top spots and also those battles in the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, regular viewers of the BSR for this season will notice that there's a little bit more blue flying about, actually. Normally, Dan Skinner has it all his own way as Lars Fischer goes back to the top of the timing tower, but there's a little bit more blue in there this time round, and we're not 100% sure, I'll be honest, about where the drivers place. We've done this off their practice times. So a couple of them have gone into the pro category. We just assigned them into the pro category. That's Sylvester, for certain anyway. He's at 4th place. And then we got Bremer, who's about the same pace as Dan Skinner, it seems, and Miles Owens, who in the practice was about the same pace as well. Andy McEwen's a little bit out of position at the moment, you'd say, in the 8th position. So a few of the other drivers, if you were basically close to Andy, you were a pro. If you were close to Dan Skinner, you were a pro-am. And if you were close to Colin Sansom, then you were going to be an am. That's sort of how we did it, Ed, isn't it? And that seems to be a fair reflection of what we're seeing in qualifying.
Yeah, it seems to be just about all right. The only driver that is out of position is Andy McEwen. But the one thing that we can say about that is that he hasn't been around too much in these MX5s. He's been absent for the last couple of meetings. Fingers crossed that he's able to get back up to the pace that we saw from him early doors in the season, where he picked up podiums thus far. I think he's got a couple to his name. Hoping for a few more to be going his way, maybe to snatch a race victory with favourable reverse grid result. As you can see, Lars Fischer topping the timing sheets. Jason Cooper, interestingly enough, not on the front row, but not by much. 0.03 of a second off of Adam Delmont there in second. And of course, Jason Cooper's not been getting any slipstream at all so far in this qualifying session. So maybe he's going to be the driver to slot in behind Lars Fischer this time as well. There's only, I think I can see only 2 5-star motorsports cars. Usually we see a entry of 3, but sadly, one is absent, but I believe it is. I think due to circumstances outside of their control, I think he's had to go home for the foreseeable. I don't know if he's back, Jack. Do we know if Wan Chi Lin is coming back?
I think he's back to China, unfortunately. So he's not going to be able to come back to us. I think that's what I saw in the Discord chat a couple of weeks ago. So Wan Chi Lin is unfortunately not able to join us anymore, but his presence will be missed. But equally, the 5-star, it doesn't really weaken them in any way, I would say, because they have been so strong. Between the two of them, between Lars Fischer and Jason Cooper. I'm actually trying to find if they've updated the points. They hadn't updated the points last time we came to have a look at them. Just seeing if there's an updated standings order. I don't think the standings order has been updated either at the moment. So I'll have to get to the bottom of that before next week, because we start getting to the crunch point of the championship, don't we, at about round 8. It's a bit of a shame if we didn't get an idea of what that sort of all looked like. But what we do know is that Lars Fischer will be right up there towards the top end. Adam Delmont will be as well, as they are in qualifying, because those two drivers have attended pretty much every single round so far this season, whereas Jason Cooper and the likes of Andy McEwen and Adam McNally have missed quite a substantial chunk.
Yeah, it was a much better lap that from Andy McEwen. He made up pretty much all of his time through that last sector, got the hairpin absolutely nailed down, carried plenty of speed through it. And we'll now look to see what he can do on his next attempt. Drivers will probably... Now you can see some of them on their outlaps, others basically pushing now up until the end. Currently following Aaron Hobson here, who is probably right at that cut-off point that we were saying about the similar pace to Andy McEwen. Was a little bit quicker than him, I think, in practice, but it is in that cut-off right between Pro and Pro-Am. So we might see Hobson drop down a bit, but we might see him also secure himself in that Pro class. It's all a bit of a guessing game that we've been having to play in the sort of quick moments before this 7th round, where we came in and saw so many new drivers, looked for the sheet, couldn't see anything, so we've tried to do the best we can, and I think we've done pretty much a bang-up job so far. Here, Jack, everyone's pretty much in their close classes. I mean, you can see it's a whole line of green, a whole line of blue, then a whole line of yellow. Obviously, green being the Pro class, blue being Pro-Am, and yellow being Am. I think we've not done too badly so far.
No, I think it looks a bit primary school, doesn't it, in terms of the colour scheme, but it seems to have worked in our favour so far this season. It's a nice sort of good singling out of those drivers, and the only driver...
Andy's...
Oh, yeah, he's going a bit slow.
I thought he was in the wall there for a minute.
No, I think he's just trying to get a little bit of a slipstream, potentially, and hunker up behind Aaron Hobson. The only driver that isn't setting a lap time at the moment is Chris Dixon. So, again, regular viewers to the BSR for this season may have noticed the numbers just a touch. It's nice to see that we've got a full 14 cars out there so far this evening, and with any luck, that won't drop off at any point either. We've had a little bit of drop-off over the course of the evening so far, over the past sort of 3 rounds, maybe 4 rounds. The action has been very exciting, but quite often only between about 2 or 3 cars. It's nice to see that the 14 cars will hopefully provide us with action up and down the order, because at the end of the day, Ed, that's what we've come to see.
Yeah, and it makes it all the more difficult for the likes of Jason Cooper to secure a grand slam of victories with these slightly bigger reverse grids, as they count just the bigger grids in general. Means that the drivers that finish high in the first race will have to drop back a little bit more in the second race, as we see Hobson hobbling back to the pits. Wasn't quite satisfied with that lap. Will he have enough time to get back out on circuit and go around? He will do if he gets out now. With just over 2 minutes to go, he could get an out lap done and then go for one final push lap, but I can't see him in any hurry to get out and go. One driver that is getting a bit of a hurry to get out and go is Adam Delmont, who's currently second fastest. And behind Lars Fischer, and I'm seeing the times coming through. Jason Cooper is on a quick one here. Personal best in Sector 1, personal best in Sector 2. He is hooked up behind his teammate now, so this is where we're going to see the difference being made. Before, he was the car punching a hole in the air, and now it's his turn to reap the rewards of good team play in the slipstream. Purple Sector 3. He is absolutely flying.
Yeah, he's going pretty quickly, isn't he? And as you said, he's reaping the rewards of having a very fast teammate up ahead of him. The teammate we chose, of course, is Lars Fischer, pole position man currently standing, but that could all change as we follow Jason Cooper going through the undulations that Ed was talking about through the back end sector. Lars gets out of the way after slightly messing it up, doesn't want to ruin Jason's lap. They go into the long right hand, nicely clipping the apex and clipping the curb. Just about holding it together there, Ed. He's probably on the limits here.
Yeah, I think that's just about within the limits of not getting a 1x, but it is ever so close when you just overrun it slightly. And again, he's having to saw at the wheel to get it to respond. He has to kick the rear end out as well, and that can induce a little bit more speed out of the corners, actually, if you get those rear tyres spinning. It sounds a little bit productive. But as we see Jason Cooper come across the line, that has been a very strong lap. We just went on board with him, and a very strong time as well. A 10th up from his teammate. He found about 2/10 compared to his previous time. And that sees him on provisional pole position. But there's one more lap to go in this qualifying session for Jason and for his teammate in second place, Lars Fischer. But like you said about teamwork, it's certainly making the dream work, and that dream could be coming true for a 5-star 1-2.
Front row lockout is always quite satisfying to have when you're a team principal, and I'm not entirely sure who actually owns the 5-star team in terms of, I don't know who really sort of took the lead in forming it up, because of course it's not exactly like it's we haven't got a Toto Wolff among us, have we? But we do sort of always think that there's normally a lead driver, a driver who sort of takes the lead on how they sort of set the team up, and the fact they sort of organise the championships to be in. I'm not entirely sure who does that for the 5-star initiative, but they're going very quickly regardless. One of those teams that wherever they go, they will be very quick. They're not going particularly quickly on this lap, but I suppose they don't really need to, Ed. They've got half a tenth up on Adam Delmont, John Sylvester and Adam McNally, who are all in the pits at the moment. James Clark, Dan Skinner and Chris Dixon are the only drivers currently out there, and Chris Dixon, we thought, had a qualifying ban. But he is out, rotating the circuit. He's got a little bit of damage on the front end of his car, I think, which shows he's hit the wall or something. But
I think that's from a previous round, I think, from Chris Dixon. It hasn't quite been cleared, but I think that was from a previous round. I believe he's already served it. So I don't see anything too dramatic coming as a result. But Jason Cooper has gone purple through Sector 3 yet again. This could be yet another improvement. We'll have a look as they come up to the line. Jason Cooper does not improve. Does his teammate Lars Fischer improve? No, he doesn't. There must have been an off-track somewhere along the line, but it doesn't matter, as for now, they will remain first and second. Here we go, though. James Clark, what can he do? He's done a personal best in Sector 2. The other sectors don't look too electrifying, so I think he will have to settle for 6th place. Can't see that time being quicker than Adam McNally's, but as he comes up to the line, will that prove me wrong? In fact, I can't see any time coming up for James Clark, so I think he will stay in 6th place. But we will now be able to, I think, bring you the qualifying results. I know we don't. We've still got drivers circulating on the course, so we have to wait a little while longer before we can bring you the results and the starting grid for the first race. But exciting qualifying. Good to see some of the newcomers, the likes of John Sylvester, definitely up the order and, you know, not out of the fight. You can see what he needs to do, and that is to get in the slipstream and stick with Cooper and Fischer.
Absolutely, yeah. And speaking of the newcomers, Ewan Bremer, I think that's how you say your name, Ewan, is in the YouTube chat, actually, as well as Carl Felver. So good evening to the both of you. Ewan actually says that there's some pretty quick guys in here, apparently. Yeah, well, Ewan, if you haven't been watching for very long, you might have been surprised of how quick some of these drivers are. But yeah, you're right. The 5-star, the Excite drivers, and, of course, some of the Year 1 cars, very, very quick indeed. They're a competitive grid for anybody to jump into. And then we've got Katie Eames and Adam McNally also chatting away in the Facebook chat. So thank you very much. A big thank you to Katie for giving a like and a share on the stream as well. Always nice. And it sees Jason Cooper and Lars Fischer lock out the front row for 5-star Motorsport. Adam Delmont and John Sylvester are 3rd and 4th, with Adam McNally in 5th, James Clark in 6th. 7th is Andy McEwen, with Aaron Hobson, the newcomer, in 8th place. Ewan Bremer is in 9th. Dan Skinner rounds out the top 10, and he's got some new playmates around him as well, as Miles Owens and also another Pro-Am driver in 11th. Colin Sampson is in 12th. 13th is Ilyas Aymaz, and then Chris Dixon rounds out the field in 14th position. So, Ed, a whole host of new drivers. We don't know much about them, but I suppose the other drivers probably don't know much about them as well, so that should add some spice into the mix, as we always like to say.
Yeah, it should do. I mean, I can't imagine it being anything other than an exciting start to proceedings, and all the cars are getting up on the grid. The lights are going to go out, and we will go racing for the first time here at Sonoma. And a brilliant start there by Lars Fischer. Jason Cooper just couldn't get up and running quick enough, and as they can see, the inside line all the way up through turn 1. Lars will have his nose just ahead, but as they get up to the right-hander at turn 2, can he fight it all the way around the outside on cold tyres? He's going to just about keep himself there, in with a shot in towards the next corner of the left-hander, but the nose is quickly chopped off in front of him by Jason Cooper. He has to back out there, Lars Fischer. and he does so. In doing so, loses a lot of time. We've got a spinner there. I think that's Hobson, who's just had a moment. Yes, it is Aaron Hobson getting off to the worst possible start. Not what he was hoping for whatsoever. But on the other side, Ivan Bremer, way up the order, up in 7th place and getting along very nicely indeed. John Sylvester as well is happy to get his first few corners on the wraps without incident, as there's a massive drift from Adam McNally. He manages to hold it, but he's going to be slow coming out of the corner, and they're going to go 3 wide into the braking zone here, Jack. And I think it's just going to be McNally hanging on. Jason Cooper, he's been thrown way out of the order. So what has happened there to Jason Cooper?
I was just thinking exactly the same thing. He did apparently get it off track, so we'll have a look and see what happened. But that means Lars Fischer has taken the race lead, and I assumed that nothing had happened that much because, again, is a 5-star car in the lead of the race. I assumed it was Jason Cooper. But no, now it's 5-star, Excite, and then 5-star. It's a bit of a sandwich for them at the moment. And a very, very wide moment there for Adam McNally. He's throwing everything at this, isn't he, at the with this first lap. But he's doing it with good gusto, good excitement. He's giving us something to look forward to, hopefully, because we know Adam McNally likes to go forward. He doesn't like to hang around. And if he doesn't think that he's got the pace to go forward, quite often he leaves the session. So if the fact that he's still there in the top 3, racing hard, shows that we've got a little bit of something to look forward to, I reckon, with this race. And even though it is the first race, and quite often qualifying dictates where everybody should be, and it can get a little bit dull, it doesn't look like that's going to happen today.
Yeah, it seems to be A-okay, but we can look in the Pro-Am class. Ivan Bremer really, really getting away well. And he's got a bit of daylight between himself and Owens there in 10th place overall, 2nd place in Pro-Am. And Dan Skinner, he's going to be not so happy that he's not in a class of his own anymore, as he is currently in the pit lane and potentially out of this first race. If he can get back out and running and start circulating, he can put himself in with a chance of a reverse grid pole position, because the way the reverse grid works is if you finish 2 laps down or more, you are not eligible for a reverse grid pole position. If you finish 1 lap down, you're A-okay. Finish on the lead lap, just the same, but 2 laps or more, you're not going to be considered for that reverse grid pole position. You will have to start where you finish. Jason Cooper will be looking not to finish in 4th, where he is currently, after this little incident where he just ran far too deep. But that's so easily done. Cold tyres going through a downhill right-hander. You have to have the car perfectly balanced and poised to take any sort of speed through those sorts of corners. And unfortunately, it was just not the right play. He may have been looking in his rearview mirrors and just missed his braking zone a touch. Yeah, I was starting to see a bit of a breakaway pack, though, those 4 drivers looking to move away ahead of Andy McEwen. And he's going to have to hope that they start battling to keep up in the fight. But lap times are coming through very nicely. In fact, Andy McEwen had a set brilliant lap time there. A lap time that I think actually would have been enough to put him certainly up towards the sharper end of the field. So drivers, it might be down to the track or something, or maybe it's just fighting close to another. They are getting quicker here, and that means that there's more and more chance for them to make a mistake by pushing the limits that little bit too much, as Adam pushes up to the back of Lars Fischer here.
Yeah, of course, track temperature will be changing through the session. The track will be rubbering in after qualifying, so those conditions might be favouring the cars, it might be favouring some drivers, and that means it's the reason why we're getting a little bit quicker. And of course, Andy was in the slipstream over that course of that last lap. So yeah, plenty of factors to be keeping in mind.
I think he's just actually outside it, Jack. I think he's right at 1.6, 1.5 seconds back. I think he's just outside, but he might be brought into it now if Jason Cooper and Adam McNally continue to squabble as they are doing now.
Yeah, but on the previous lap when he set that time, he was behind John Sylvester. He actually overtook him on that lap, so that's why it is an impressive lap time in itself. Nicely clipping the apexes left and right from Jason Cooper there. Looked like Adam McNally was a little bit squirrely. He actually said, I think we've had a chat with Adam McNally so far this season, that the setups that they're using, they've had from about 3 years ago. They haven't changed them, even though the handling model has changed so much. As Adam Delmont looks up the inside, I saw that going into the final corner. Can he get the drive off the hairpin? He's close as he's ever been, I'd say, here, Ed. But we've seen as they go through turn 1, it's a little difficult to throw one up the inside into turn 2. Adam Delmont seems to be keen to give it a go, though, because this is faster than he's been before. He's got nice overspeed. It's going to be on the edge of glory. But can Adam Delmont get under the brakes? No, Lars Fischer holds him off for one more lap.
No, it was very close, but he was putting himself in the right position. You want to be all the way around the outside through the first corner to set yourself up nicely for the right-hander that follows straight after. So he's got the right idea about things. He's just not quite in the right place at the right time. He needs a bit more of an overlap, if at all possible. The only other really big chance for an overtake is after this left-hander. You've got that sharp right that comes up a heavy braking zone, which is where we see plenty of overtaking moves being made. And we might see one here as Jason Cooper looks to go around the outside here of Adam McNally. I think Adam's going to try and cover off the inside, but Jason is going to be there, and he's going to send it. Last of the late breakers. Can both of these drivers fight their position and get ahead and stay ahead? I think Jason's just about done it. He's forced Adam McNally running out of road. And Andy McEwen keeps it pinned and drives past the pair of them.
Yeah, there was a little bit too much contact, wasn't there, between Adam McNally and Jason Cooper. And you're right, McEwen took full advantage of that situation. Decided to go straight on through. Thank you very much. I'll take away that third place from both of you, and you can fight about it behind me. With a McNally, now with Adam Delmont not worrying about the drivers behind him, Lars Fischer not having his teammate to try and slow them up by overtaking them, it's going to be a little bit more of a dicey finish. We're halfway through this race. Well, not even halfway through, actually. I'm not entirely sure where this race has actually disappeared by, but 7 minutes gone. 7.5 minutes pretty much to go, actually, as Delmont again tries to set up that outside line. Is he going to go for a cutback here? He is indeed. Ed, I'm not sure if that is advisable, but he is trying everything to try and get past Lars Fischer.
He's forcing Lars Fischer to go through unconventional lines and hope for a mistake more than anything else. Look, you can see he's trying to squeeze his way through. He's forced Lars to go very tight into the corner. Both of them have to slam on the brakes and go a lot slower through there than they would like. And look at how much that has allowed Andy McEwen to get up to the back of this fight. And he really needs this slipstream to keep Jason Cooper at bay. And he is going to get it and then some off of both of these two cars, Lars Fischer and Adam Delmont. Banging doors, proper touring car style battling this is. We absolutely love to see it. Thankfully, there haven't been any race-ending incidents. There's been a few argy-bargy moments, and I think actually Jason Cooper has been able to stay ahead of Adam McNally after that little moment through this very corner. It was Jason Cooper, I believe, crowding McNally out of road. Hope to see that that doesn't happen again between these two drivers. It seems to be a switchback maneuver being pulled off by Adam Delmont, but he can't get the run quick enough out of the corner, because then you get into these S's and it's pretty much single file traffic from here up until the hairpin. But Adam Delmont is going to, fill the rearview mirrors, move to the left, move to the right, just let him know that he is there, and I guess let Lars Fischer make all the decisions about where he's going to have to defend.
Speaking of defending, Andy McEwen is thinking, I don't think that's an aggressive move to the inside. I think it's more of a defensive move to try and get rid of Jason Cooper. He got caught behind the Excite driver and then got squirrely on the exit as well. He hasn't been around for much of this season, Andy McEwen. He doesn't really like the handling model. He doesn't particularly like the calendar either. And that means he's struggling with the car around Sonoma here, and he's lost out to Jason Cooper. How long will it be until he loses out to Adam McNally as well? We've seen how loose the rear end is of McNally's car. Maybe he isn't quite as happy with it as his teammate Adam Delmont, but it doesn't mean that he's slow by any means. The fifth place driver will probably feel like he deserves to be slightly higher up, as now Adam Delmont finds himself in a sandwich of 5-star cars. McEwen goes defensive. Is he going to go a little bit deep? I think he has, and that's allowed Adam McNally to cut up his inside, try and get that switch back. Ed, it's all going off, but McEwen looks like he's gone from 5th to 3rd and will struggle down to 5th again.
Yeah, but I don't know about that. He's going to fight it all the way through. They go side by side. There's a little bit of a touch and a little bit of a slide from the pair of them as a result. But Andy is going to keep fighting this like his life depends on it. He can't allow these three up ahead to fight too much and streak away. As look at this, Jason Cooper, is he going to go around the outside of the pair of them? Not quite. Actually, Adam Delmont gives a bit of a bump to Lars Fischer, who parks it on the apex, and that opens the door for Jason Cooper. Maybe a little bit of team play going through, but there's still ages to go in this race. There's only a third left 5 more minutes for Lars Fischer to hang on ahead of Jason Cooper. Andy McEwen is stuck behind Adam McNally here, but I think he's going to be glad because he was at risk of losing out and dropping back to 6th place behind Sylvester.
Yeah, there was a little bit of, big send by McEwen.
Ooh.
There wasn't a gap there, but luckily I think McNally just about saw that one coming, and when the contact arrived, he managed to be able to save it before anything was spinning off. But that was a little bit of a risque move, that one, Ed, wasn't it? I think McEwen maybe missed his braking zone a touch.
I think Andy actually went to the inside not to go for an overtaking move, rather to avoid the rear end. He might have just outbroke himself a bit too much and basically went to the inside to avoid properly slamming into the rear end of the Excite car ahead. Realises that I think he was a little bit too cheeky with that move as well. And you can see out of the hairpin, he did lift off and slot in behind. Holding on to 5th place at the moment is the lone year 1 racing driver here tonight. Lars Fischer, though, he's got a teammate for company, but a teammate that looks to be less of a mate and more of an enemy for that race win. Nose to tail up ahead, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, squabbling away. But no moves being made at the moment. I think they're starting to calm down, cool off just a touch. Oh, Jason misses a little bit of a moment, gets it wide open for... He fancies a little look up the inside, but then backs out because the next apex comes in very quickly, and it's no worth sending a little half-asked move up the inside. Can always result in contact. We've seen plenty of contact, but thankfully nothing too major. All these drivers have had their fair share of door-banging contact, and they're still rolling, which is good to see. iRacing making these cars a little bit more sturdy, I think, Jack.
Yeah, which is always quite pleasant. I mean, the MX5s, when I used to race them, you used to, breathe on someone's rear end, and your front end would capitulate, and you would lose about 5 seconds a lap because you would lose
made of
about
tissue paper.
Yeah, exactly. Tissue paper. Paper mache was probably too sturdy a description for what they used to be. So it is nice that they've got a little bit more about them these days. And Jason Cooper gets really loose midway through that section of the corner, and that almost allowed Adam Delmont to slot his way through. McEwen has got a headache now as well behind him by newcomer John Sylvester, who definitely is a pro, I would say. Ed, we've definitely called that one right, haven't we?
Yeah, he's certainly on pace with these drivers. He's not allowed Jason Cooper and Lars Fischer to get too far away. Speaking of getting too far away, actually, has Fischer been able to build up a bit of a gap? He got that to just over half a second. The battle for first, the battle box flashed a bit of yellow Lars Fischer's way, which shows that he's got his gap to half a second to that 1 second mark. But then the slipstream is so strong that it closes way, way back down again. Cooper braking slightly early there, but he's brakes earlier, slightly softer, trail braking into the corner. That might be where he finds so much of his time, is not by braking late and hard, but braking a little bit before most other drivers' conventional sort of markers, but trailing it in, getting the car settled, and that allows him to carry more speed through the corners. It's something that we've noticed, haven't we, Jack, throughout the round so far this season. It needs a bit more of a deft hand on this current time model, and it's one that I think Jason Cooper has been able to find quicker, at least quicker than the rest of them.
Well, in any form of motorsport, the fastest drivers are not the fastest because of how they use the throttle or the steering wheel. They're fastest by how they use the brake pedal. And it's about how deftly you can use it. You're absolutely right. It's about when you can come off the brake. It's about how you can use it to your advantage to turn the rear end and turn the car. So it's all about technique with the brake pedal. And you're right, Jason Cooper is a dab hand at it. Even if he's a little sideways through that section of the track, he makes it up in abundance through the second and third sector. For third and fourth sector, I should say. He's absolutely rapid in it, and that is because, like you said, he controls the car using the brake pedal, and he's so adept at getting it turned and getting the power back on. Whereas the likes of Adam McNally, who likes the rear end loose, it seems, he's very much a hard braker, very much a hard on the accelerator, rotate the rear end as much as possible, and will eventually probably cook the tyres if we had a longer race to cook the tyres in. So it's interesting to see the different techniques that these drivers are actually building and how it works well for them. But we are on to the final lap of the race. Lars Fischer is in the lead by about 0.2 of a second. He's got Jason Cooper's teammate behind him, who in turn He's about 0.3 of a second ahead of Adam Delmont, who's got his teammate Adam McNally just behind. But is there a gap up the inside? No, it's the trick of the light, shall I say.
Yeah, it does open the door for Delmont. You don't want to give him any more than a light sniff because he will absolutely go for it. A gap on the inside. He's not a driver to turn that down. And there might be a gap up the inside in towards the hairpin now as we come through for the final time in this first race. It will start to close down, and Jason Cooper's been strong through this right-hander all evening long. If there's a time to go for a move up the inside, time is now. And Delmont looks for it. Does that throw Jason Cooper off his mark? No, it doesn't. But look who goes deep into the corner. Lars Fischer with a late mistake. Is that going to be proving costly? I don't think it will as he bends around that final kink. He will come up to the line and taking the first race of the evening. It will be Lars Fischer, but only just ahead of Jason Cooper.
Yeah, and then we've got the, not the forgotten men, but the drivers who have not necessarily been shown too much so far today. I do apologise for any newcomers to the championship who haven't been on the TV as much as they were probably hoping, but I hope you can understand that when the top 3 or top 6 are fighting that close together, and then we're going to have a look at them instead of drivers who are about 2 seconds apart. But a really good race there, Ed, wasn't it? And before we sort of, well, while we're waiting for Chris Dixon to round it out, we're going to bring up the random number generator. That's not the random number generator. That is the standings that aren't existing. And we'll be able to bring you the reverse grid number. It is going to be between 7th and 14th for race number 2. And once we generate it, you can see that we're going to top 10 reverse grid. So keep an eye on that when we go through the results. Well, you can see on the left-hand side, to be fair. But we're going to bring you the results now anyway, whilst Ed chucks that in the Discord chat. Thank you very much, Ed, in advance. Lars Fischer then took the victory, even with that late scare around the penultimate corner, by 1/10 of a second ahead of his teammate, 5-Star Motorsports, Jason Cooper. Adam Delmont was in 3rd ahead of his teammate, Adam McNally. Andy McEwen was in 5th with John Sylvester in 6th. James Clark was in 7th, and then we've got the winner of the Pro-Am category, Iran Bremer, in 8th place. 9th was Miles Owens with 10th, and on pole position for race number 2 of the evening, Colin Sansom. 11th was Aaron Hobson, with 12th being Chris Dixon, and then a fair few laps down, unfortunately, not scoring any points, Dan Skinner and Imaz. Ilyas Imaz? I apologise if I'm saying that incorrectly. Please do correct me phonetically in the YouTube chat, or Facebook chat, actually. Either one would be delightful. But yeah, top 10 reverse grid, Ed, with Colin Sanson on pole position. That's going to be a bit of an exciting one for him. We've seen Colin get quite a few pole positions. Hopefully this time he can hold on to it a little bit better than he has in the past.
Yeah, we'll certainly see. It's going to allow, though, some of those drivers, like we said, who have not had too much screen time, a little bit more limelight. Ivan Bremer and Miles Owens, they're up towards the sharp end. Miles Owens on the front row. It's going to be very exciting to see what the newcomer can do from there into turn 1 against one of the veterans, really, I think it's fair to say, of the BSR MX5 trophy, Colin Sansom.
Absolutely, yeah. A proper veteran is Colin. I'm sure he won't be too disappointed to hear his name uttered in that regard. But we're going to go for a very quick break now. So please do come back in about 10 minutes time for race 2 of the BSR MX5 trophy, round 7 here at Sonoma, who will have Colin Sansom on pole position. Hello everybody and welcome back to the BSR MX5 trophy here on Jacko Racing round 7 at Sonoma. We're about to go into race number 2 of the evening, and Ed, we had a first race that was filled with good moves and close battles, but really it was the 5-star teammates that came out on top, just like they did in qualifying.
Yeah, a little bit of a late sort of heart attack, you could say, for Lars Fischer with that slight mistake out of that final hairpin, but he was able to hang on just by a tenth of a second to Jason Cooper as they came across the line. But good victory going the way of Lars, of his 5-star teammate, showing that he can take the fight and he can finish ahead of Jason Cooper when he wants to, when he isn't having to play the team game. So hopefully we see plenty more action and squabbling between those teammates, because they are very quick indeed. But then we do have very exciting reverse grid that you will be able to talk to us now about, Jack.
Yes, and if it brought up the right grid, there we go, it would be very helpful indeed. Colin Sansom is on pole position. Remember, it's a top 10 reverse grid if you didn't see the first race. Miles Owens is in second place, that means, and Ivan Bremer is in third, or Bremer. Oh, I'm not entirely sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I'm English and we're ignorant. Fourth is James Clark, not an excuse, it's just a fact, by the way. Fifth is John Sylvester, with sixth being Andy McEwen. Adam McNally in seventh, and eighth is Adam Delmont. Ninth is Jason Cooper, and the top 10 is rounded out by Lars Fischer, who won the first race. Aaron Hobson is in 11th, with Chris Dixon in 12th. 13th is Dan Skinner, which means, unfortunately, we have lost one driver. But we have gained so many in the interim that hopefully it won't matter too much. I think the driver we've lost is an AM driver, who I can't remember which one it is, though. We had 3, so I'm sure who it was. Anyway, the lights are about to come on. The engine notes are rising. That can only mean one thing here at Virtual Sonoma, and we are racing in the BSR MX5 trophy here on Jacko Racing. Colin Sampson gets a good start away, so does Miles Owens and Ivan Bremer in the two drivers for teammates, with James Clark flying around the outside, trying to put a little bit of pressure on the top 4. We've got a driver flying off on the outside. That's Chris Dixon, unfortunately, as Colin Sampson leads the way. He got a decent start there, Ed, but he's got Miles Owens chasing him down, and a spinner for Adam Delmont.
Dear, oh dear. That is a big moment for Adam Delmont, and a bigger moment for Jason Cooper, who collides with his teammate.
Lars Fischer's gone round, hasn't he? And it's a massive moment there, Ed, for the 2 5-star team. And Colin Sampson still leads the way. Miles Owens in second place, but Adam McNally and Andy McEwen are third and fourth. That could have massive implications for the rest of this evening for those two.
That could indeed. Colin is going to be loving life, though, continuing to lead the race ahead of Owens. As my internet blinks in and out for a brief moment there, but I think I've got back pictures here. It is going to be exciting to see how this battle will rage on. Owens is going to be hoping to get ahead. Miles is a newcomer, but can he get a podium on his first evening's worth of racing? Maybe for a race victory if he can get ahead of Colin Sansom, build a gap before the slipstream becomes a factor. You never know. Quick there through the right-hander. The gap might open up in towards the hairpin. He's going to go for it, you know. Oh, no, he doesn't. Yes, he does. Colin, actually, I thought Colin was going to break a little bit later and fight for it. But no, he doesn't. He keeps it going, and all of a sudden leaves the door way, way open for Adam McNally now.
Yeah, and but he gets closed off, McNally. So Colin Sampson doing Miles Owens a bit of a favour there, I would say, and locking that second place down for the times being. And what you would say, if you were Miles Owens, you'd rather have the likes of McNally and McEwen chasing you down, because even though they've both been top 6 pace, they haven't quite been race winning pace, and you'd probably be expecting the likes of the 5-star team to be chasing the top step of the podium. But as Colin Sampson moves out the way, he has unleashed the Excite and Year 1 drivers to attack the newcomer Miles Owens, the Pro-Am driver that we've assigned him into the Pro-Am category. And by the looks of it, he doesn't quite have the pace of these pros, so it's probably the correct call. But with only 2.5 minutes into this race, he's got a long time to defend now, Ed.
This is very exciting, isn't it? Owens ahead of McNally, ahead of McEwen. You've got the battle of the... We've had the battle of the... where has it been? Oh, I can't remember the name now. The Jameses. Now we've got the battle of the Mooks. McNally versus McEwen. Both of them slide on past Owens. And now game on for the lead of the race for these two. Owens is going to have to, I think, just hope to hang on to these two because they are a little bit quicker than him, I think it's fair to say. Andy here has got a run.
Having to lift off though, wasn't he, there, because he knew that there wasn't an overtaking opportunity. So yes, McNally, who did come in the Facebook chat saying how fun are these cars to slide around, doesn't necessarily translate into pace though, does it, when you're having that much fun sliding the rear end? But at least he is out there having fun at the end of the day, Ed, and that is pretty much the reason why we do go sim racing. I'm sure he'd rather take a race victory though.
Yeah, I think that is the case. But sometimes with the slide, it's better to actually let the slide run and try and throwing it too hard, because then that gets a bit of a snap on and slows you down even more. Right now, he's, like you say, he's been low in life in these cars, and he's probably been less so. He's been the one to, I think, complain most about the way these cars handle and drive. But you wouldn't believe it, would you, from the way he's absolutely slinging his MX5 up through the undulations and the curbs at that first sector. It is brilliant fun to watch on board, isn't it, Jack?
It absolutely is, and he's going for the move, isn't he, down the long left-hander. He's jived up the inside. McNally might have a little bit of a problem here. He's going to be able to carry the momentum. Well, only time will tell as they dive over to the left-hand side of the circuit. Avoiding that cut through, it's going to be a right-hander, which means it's going to be advantage McNally. But can Andy carry that momentum round? It's a tight-ish double hairpin, I would argue. And McNally just about gets the car done, and that's actually McEwen stepping the back end out. And as they go through the S's, we saw that McEwen was a little bit stronger than McNally in the previous lap, but is that going to cause a little bit of tension for them as they go towards the rear end of this circuit? McNally nicely got it composed, I would say, there, and actually, hasn't he? He's got a little bit more together. Oh, as I say that, he's hanging the rear end out, and that is probably one of the worst places to do it, because it opens the door into the penultimate corner for Andy McEwen to dive up the inside, and dive up the inside he has. Can he get a good run? Can he get the exit? Can he get that top spot on the podium? Not quite yet as they go through the left. It's going to still be the Excite driver of Adam McNally across the line in first place.
Oh, yeah, but oh, my word. How much longer has the two of them come to blows? McEwen has to slam on the anchors to regain control of the car. That's not going to be what he's hoping for, but what does give him a bit more confidence, Andy, is that he closed up before. He can do it again. I don't think there's been any serious damage done there in that sort of, it's a hip check, wasn't it, between the two of them. Seems to be A-OK for McEwen. And this fight will continue to rage on down the field. There are close battles as well. I think Ivan Bremer is in a bit of a scrap here with Adam Delmont. That's Dan Skinner he's battling with. Dan was way behind in the background. This is actually between Dan Skinner for, I believe, the second place in Pro-Am.
Yeah, at the moment, obviously, Miles Owen is the Pro-Am driver who leads the way. So you're right, Ivan Bremer and Dan Skinner fighting it out for second, but ultimately, they'll probably be more concerned with the fact that they're fighting it out for a top 5 overall. With the likes of Adam Delmont, you're right, in the background. You can just about, well, you can see him fairly. He's getting closer and closer in 7th place. But Jason Cooper and Lars Fischer and John Sylvester, it is worth saying, because he was right at the front in the last race, all in the pit lane. And before we see any more action from any of these cars, let's have a look. Jason Cooper ended up the wrong way, and Lars Fischer also had another coming off. So what happened here? This is Jason Cooper. It seems to be all on his own. Is he going to just clip this curb a little bit too much? Is he? Yes, he is. He's going to clip the curb. He's going to spin the rear end round. And off he goes. And that is why he is in the pit lane. Now, Lars Fischer has also had a big off. Is this the beginning of the race? Oh, it is. This was
at the start of the race.
Yeah, yeah.
So and that was kicked off by something else entirely.
Yeah, I think maybe something to do with James Clark. In the background there is the 5-star team. Oh, yeah, they just get loose. They just get loose, and then all of a sudden, James Clark spins. And the 5-star teammate try and, yeah, there's just contact. There's just a melee of things going wrong in that particular picture.
I think the big thing that went wrong for all those drivers there is that they didn't slow down. When the yellow flags came out, they were all fighting through. They knew there were going to be cars going slowly, going back onto the circuit. It's all about just lifting off and not trying to power through and make up places. Instead, think about getting through the incident in one piece. And unfortunately, I don't think that message quite got into some of those drivers at the start of the race. I think McNally is getting the message here, though, that McEwen wants to get past.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he's probably had that message for quite some time now. Miles Owens will be a driver who's probably enjoying this little scene at the moment because we've seen that he's not quite got the pace. But equally, he's within touching distance because of how hard they're fighting. And in his background, Colin Sansom, Ed. Brilliant drive by him. Normally on pole position. No offence to Colin. We can't often see him drop back, and after the first 2 corners, we don't have him on our screens very often. But running in the top 4, and the fact that Skinner and Bremer behind are battling it between themselves, you never know. There's only about 6 minutes left. He can stay there.
Yeah, and don't forget. Oh no, Andy McEwen! What on earth happened there? Was he just too tight to the corner, and did he get clipped by one of those tyre barriers? Potentially, it was them sort of tyre stacks that line the inside of that final hairpin. Going on board with Andy McEwen.
Oh, wow.
Oh, he just takes it too tight.
It damaged McNally as well, actually. If you sort of have a quick look, he's got registered as a crash as well. So we try and find the right foot suspension. You might get hit by a tyre wall at this point. We'll have a quick look, but McNally actually damages the car after clipping the tyres at the same point. There we go. You can see the damage and the front end being ripped off.
So it's sort of a scrape there. I think he's gotten away with it. It might be a 0x contact, but actually, McEwen was following him so closely that he made his own little mistake, and that could be very, very big for Andy. Hopefully that's not a terminal damage. Seems to be okay for now, doesn't it? Going around, not crabbing. So I think he's just about fine, but not what he's hoping for. Instead, what he's going to have to hope for is a favourable reverse grid draw. Maybe that'll come as, like this Jason Cooper, Lars Fischer out of this race. And oh my word, there's been a bigger moment. Adam Delmont has been in the wars yet again. And McEwen all of a sudden back up into 4th place, just ahead of Dan Skinner.
Yeah, well, we like to try and hold back judgment as commentators, but I'm going to break that because I always do, to be honest. But it looked like that Iran Bremer just sort of, I don't want to say it, but binned Adam Delmont in this one. Let's have a look at going into the right hand. I think Bremer just completely misses the braking zone, and unfortunately, Adam Delmont was there.
He did the right thing. He stopped right after the contact and allowed the driver that he basically just full on abused into that braking zone to get back up ahead. That's one way to say it, of course. Here we go now. Battle for the podium places, 2nd and 3rd. Miles Owens ahead of Colin Sansom. Miles Owens has had a really bad lap. I think he's dropped a couple of seconds and now well within the clutches of Colin Sansom.
Yeah, Sansom, who I was complimenting so much before, will have an opportunity to not only get on the podium, but potentially a 2nd place under his belt, as Miles Owens is, well, I think overdriving this a little bit, would you say, Ed? He's almost getting a little bit too much of a nosebleed being this high up in his first race.
Yeah, it is, and it's that. I think that's what you see with a lot of newcomers to the series, that the occasion the pressure can get to them just a touch, and we've seen a couple of mistakes creeping in to Miles Owens' driving, but maybe now we'll have to see him, well, at least for his sake, he will need to have a much more cooler head in these closing moments, these closing laps of the race. McEwen ahead still of Skinner, and I think trying to break away. The slipstream is keeping them close, but Andy appears to have the pace on the Pro-Am Excite driver. I mean, a podium is still on the cards here for Andy. We know how quick he is. He's a pro driver compared to the pace of Colin Sansom, who is, let's be kind to him, still an AM driver. Plenty of time to go in this race with this lap and one more when Adam McNally gets up to the line. Still plenty of things to play for here. Podium is not quite assured just yet.
Just having a look in the background there, Ed, because obviously we're following this fight, which is heating up. I just wanted to have a look at Andy McEwen's line through that penultimate corner, and he was very much avoidant of the apex that time. I don't know whether that was because he just missed the apex, or whether that was because he was avoiding it like the plague, so it didn't happen again, and he didn't hit into those tyre walls, because there is a fine margin by the looks of it. And to be fair to McNally at least, it did look like there was almost like he almost hit thin air, but because the game had registered that there was an obstacle there, it was almost netcode style, I thought, the way that McNally's front end got ripped apart. But it clearly didn't affect him that much because he's still leading this race. Miles Owens is in second place. For how much longer, we'll have to wait and see. On that previous lap, McEwen was a good second, well, 1.3 seconds quicker than Colin Sansom. So Ed's right, this isn't quite over yet. He's only got 3.5 seconds, which normally would be a massive margin. If these two start fighting with 2 minutes to go, or a minute, well, 2 laps to go probably, there's every opportunity that McEwen could still see himself onto at least the bottom step of the podium. We'll have to wait and see. Miles Owens, he's defended Colin Sansom a lot more efficiently than he defended the likes of McNally and McEwen earlier on.
Yeah, so I think fair to say McEwen is streaking away from Delmont as well. Miles Owens is so strong through that right-hander. Sansom just can't quite keep with him. Seeing drivers back out on circuit as well. Lars Fischer and Jason Cooper. I think just to get a bit of rhythm back into themselves. It's easy after making a mistake and then having to start in the subsequent race afresh again without having more laps under your belt. You can make the same mistakes. So I think they're just get a few laps sorted out. Although they are considerably far down the order, they will still be classed as non-finishers.
Yeah, they won't be eligible for the reverse grid either, will they? The last driver that will be eligible for that will be Chris Dixon, down in 10th position, because he is on the same lap as everybody else. He just hasn't crossed the finish line yet. So yeah, those drivers, the likes of Lars Fischer, Jason Cooper, Don Sylvester, will not be eligible for the reverse grid and won't be scoring any points. But you're right, Ed, sometimes you just want to get into a rhythm, don't you? You want to get back into it after going away, going to the toilet or whatever they've done, and before they get into the next race. Even though there is that 10-minute practice session before the race 3, but we'll just let that one slide for the time being. It looks like McNally is going to have this one wrapped up, isn't he? He's got half a lap. It doesn't really need to worry too much about the two drivers behind, who in themselves have gapped. Well, Miles Owens has gapped Colin Sansom, and even though Andy McEwen is quicker, again by just over a second, it doesn't look like that Sansom's going to be caught by him, because this is the final lap of the race. And a drifting Adam McNally is certainly enjoying himself out there. I said before that he would rather have a race victory than a drifting competition. But sometimes, Ed, it's not very often in life you can have both.
I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do, though. How many times we saw earlier this race, Jason Cooper drifting through that corner and making a big mistake, dropping out of the finishing order. I mean, it's a nice bit of showboating, isn't it, from Adam McNally all the way around that final bend. One more little kink to go, and we'll see him cross the line to take the race victory here. Hard fought and well earned by Adam McNally. And Miles Owens, on his first evening's worth of racing in the BSR MX5, takes second place, a Pro-Am win, and the overall podium as well. Brilliant stuff. And Colin Sansom, hats off to him. For an AM driver, a podium result is basically a race win and then some. That is a astounding result. And I'm absolutely overjoyed from brilliant, brilliant stuff. Andy McEwen just misses out, but when you consider that he was pretty much stone dead last of all of the runners, to get back up and fight through and get into 4th place, that is certainly no small feat either. So a topsy-turvy, up and down, side to side, left and right race. Pretty much everything happened that could have happened. But what a race. Anyway, and now I think we will have the reverse grid random number generator coming up for us now, Jack.
We do indeed. So we are going between 7 and 13, because of course there's only 13 drivers this time round, but there is only 10 that are eligible. So we do get the full reverse grid, but of course that will just go to number 10 again. So keep that in mind when we run you through the race results whenever they become available to us. I think we're just waiting for Lars Fischer to cross the line, which in typical Lars Fischer fashion doesn't take particularly long. And as he does cross the line, the results are now available to us. So, confirmed race winner is the drifting Adam McNally by 1.8 seconds ahead of the Pro-Am victor and second place overall, which I'm sure he'll be much more pleased about, Miles Owens. The Am victor and on bottom step of the podium will be Colin Sampson, and that's his first time this season. First time in a very long time, actually, I think. We've had all 3 categories represented on the podium, so big congratulations to those 3. Andy McEwen was in 4th with Adam Delmont in 5th. 6th was Dan Skinner, 2nd in the Pro-Am category. 7th was Aaron Hobson. 8th was Ivan Bremer. In 9th was James Clark. 10th was Chris Dixon, and he'll be on pole position for race number 3 of the evening. Lars Fisher is 11th, but 5 laps down. Jason Cooper and John Sylvester were also multiple laps down, so they finished in 12th and 13th, respectively. Right, big congratulations, as I said just before, to the 3 podium sitters and therefore 3 class victors as well. I'm glad to say Colin Sampson is right up there at the sharp end, and he drove really well as well, didn't he, Ed? Trying to put all that pressure on Miles Owens.
Sorry, I was just typing in the reverse grid result into the chat, and I completely did not hear what you said, Jack.
I was just saying that Colin Sampson was, we're very pleased to see him because he's always around and about, isn't he? But he really drove very well to put the pressure on Miles Owens. He just didn't have that pace overall.
Yeah, he was. He was very, very good indeed. I don't know if we have any drivers. I don't know if you can see any, Jack. But
we do. We have a rogue Andy McEwen coming to join us.
Let us bring him into the commentary box for a quick little chin wag. And that was well, certainly an eventful race from you, Andy. You basically were, I think, finished at one point. You were in every single position on the grid there at one stage or another, and could have gone for the win. But to fight back through from that moment you had at the final hairpin to finish in P4, not too bad.
Yeah, that was one of the weirdest races I've ever been in. I've partly come in to defend myself, actually, because I've just watched the replay back, and it looks like I drove straight into a tyre wall, which, believe it or not, is not what actually happened. On my screen, Delmont hit the tyre wall. He actually spun in front of me, and I hit the side of his car. But obviously, there must have been some netcode or something, because when I watched the replay back, that's not at all what happened. So I swear to you, I'm not making that up. Genuinely, on my screen, Delmont crashed when he was in the lead, and I drove into him, and that's what happened. But iRacing doing iRacing things there, I think.
A very interesting driving excuse for an incident. Not one that I've ever heard before.
The truth, I swear.
I know. I definitely am just yanking your chain, mate. But yeah, it's certainly a weird one. But yeah, that's one of the weird things about sim racing. That isn't obviously what we get in real life, but one of the little quirks of the sim. Nevertheless, it's something to watch out for. Maybe it was tactical, do you reckon? Do you reckon he was doing that on purpose to throw you off?
No, well, I don't know. I don't know if he's smart enough to think of that, McNally. But maybe he is. Because it happened twice, actually, on my screen at least. There was a point where we were side by side through the little kink after the start-finish line, and he just clipped the wall on the inside, sort of bounced into me and knocked me offline. And I kept saying to him over the driver chat, you need to stop driving into walls, McNally. And I was getting no response, and now I know why. So, yeah, all a bit weird. But, hey, enjoying being back in BSR. Been some good racing tonight. And who knows, I might just survive one and get a podium before the night's over.
Yeah, and good to have you back. You're going to be starting on, I think, a 7th on the grid with another top 10 reverse. So you got a little ways to go. But if there's more carnage ahead of you like there was in that second race, anything's possible. Do you think you can get a podium tonight?
Well, look, I started 7th in race 1, and I nearly won that one. So, or at one point I thought I was going to win it anyway, and then the rear tyres went off. So it's one of those tracks, isn't it, where this particular tyre model, handling model, whatever, it really makes it difficult to race side by side because the cars are just sideways everywhere. We've seen even, Jason Cooper throwing it off the road a couple of times tonight. So I think there'll be a bit of carnage. I've sort of made a bit of a thing in the past of being able to pick my way through all of that. But I'm beginning to wonder if I used up all of my 9 lives last season when I won the championship because I'm not having much luck at the moment.
We will see if your luck turns to favour you tonight, mate. With 2 more races to go, anything is possible. Best of luck, mate.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
And that was Andy McEwen coming in to have a quick chat with Ed May, but we'll be going away to try and jump out of this particular server and into the next one. And so join us in a couple of minutes' time for race number 3. Welcome back, everybody, to Sonoma for round 7 of the BSR MX5 trophy. We're about to get underway for race number 3 of the evening. And, well, Ed, if it's anything like race number 1 or 2, we're in for a hell of a treat, aren't we? Because it's been action from start to finish, basically, in both of the 15-minute sessions.
Yeah, and with a full reverse grid drawn out from the random number generator just a few moments ago, sets us up for a cracking third race, and one that we'll see Jason Cooper and Lars Fischer having to start basically from the rear end of the grid.
Well, indeed, yeah. It was going to be a full reverse grid of 13 cars, wasn't it? But unfortunately, we didn't have 13 finishes, so it rounded out to be a top 10 reverse grid, which is exactly the same as what it was in for race 2, of course, with Colin Sansom doing so well from pole, didn't he, Ed? And he ended up taking that AM victory, sorry, and of course that 3rd place on the overall podium.
Yeah, I mean, there were some great results all across the board, you have to say. Oh, we're actually getting towards the end of the practice session, Jack. So talk us through the starting order for the 3rd race of the evening.
Yeah, well, I mentioned already that we've had Colin Sansom on pole. That was an AM driver. We've got another AM driver on pole position for race 3. It's Chris Dixon, though, this time, who starts on the front row alongside James Clark and then Ivan Bremer in 3rd place. Aaron Hobson in 4th, and 5th, Dan Skinner, 6th, Adam Delmont, 7th, Andy McEwen, 8th is Colin Sansom, with Miles Owens in 9th and Adam McNally rounding out the top 10. And of course, Adam McNally took the victory in the 2nd race. Lars Fischer in 11th with Jason Cooper in 12th. And then rounding out the field will be John Sylvester, the newcomer in the pro category, who's, I wouldn't say had a night to forget, Ed, but it's not been the night he was dreaming for, I'm sure. We're only waiting for Chris Dixon to take his pole position, unless he wants to start from the pit lane, which some drivers do actually tend to vote for. But no, Chris Dixon has decided to take to the start line, which means we can get some engine notes right. We can get some lights on the board. And you know what that means, Ed? That means we've got some racing coming our way here at Sonoma on Jacko Racing. And it's a good start by Chris Dixon ahead of James Clark, who's got a little bit of a problem, I would say, by Ivan Bremer. Look at the background, though. Adam Delmont trying to make it 3 wide up the hill to start around the outside of a few of the drivers, including his teammate, Dan Skinner. Aaron Hobson may be the cork in the bottle, another driver who's new to the championship and maybe was hoping for a little bit stronger results after his practice showed that he had good pace. The top 3 have pulled away in the same order that they were, but Aaron Hobson is currently in 4th place under an enormous amount of pressure as Andy McEwen almost getting sent wide, high, wide and handsome and across the grass. He manages to hold it together for the time being. As the 2 new drivers, Bremer and Hobson, go side by side for 3rd.
Yeah, Amy McEwen was forced wide, but now he's going to have the inside this time on Dan Skinner. He's going to look to try and make this move stick. The inside line and a bit of slipstream maybe helping him out in towards the tight braking zone of this heavy right-hander that's coming up. We'll see Clark lead the way through. There's a little bit of a bump. I think that was on Hobson. I'm not sure who else was involved in that one, but it's certainly Hobson that was involved in it. All of a sudden, Andy McEwen has swept right the way around the outside of pretty much everybody and got up into 3rd place.
Yeah,
How has he done that?
I'll tell you how that came about, actually. It was mainly because Chris Dixon, who was in an attempt to get out of the way of everybody, just decided to go to the inside of the circuit and slam the brakes on so early.
I thought I saw Chris Dixon have a moment, or someone have a moment there. That might have been Ivan Bremer as Jason Cooper got past, but that was nearly a big incident.
It was, and there's more incidents as Adam McNally decides, as we cut forward, to hit Aaron Hobson out of the way. Now, we did join that late. We probably joined that at the worst possible moment to shine Adam McNally in that light. But it did look like that, and I'm sure it's probably not the case. So there'll be a proper replay and a proper steward's inquiry after the race. The top 3 are getting side by side, but so is the fight for 4th position backwards. And Ed, this is getting a little bit chaotic. Andy McEwen came in after to do an interview with us after race number 2. He said that there's likely to be a little bit of chaos. He wasn't lying to us.
No, and Jason Cooper was basically had the door slammed shut in his face. He almost had his fingers trapped in the door. Such was the lateness of that move from Adam McNally. But he backed out of it to Jason Cooper, living to fight another day. Here we go then. James Clark ahead of Adam Delmont, ahead of Andy McEwen, but for not much longer as Andy sees the gap up the inside and slots his MX5s right up into it. And now, with a bit of help from the slipstream of James Clark, can he find a way past? He's going to, yet again, go for the move around the outside. He's very late on the brakes, is Andy. He's going to sweep it through. He's done it once before. Can he do it again? He's forced wide there. I mean, there's all the road to use. Why not use it? But Andy McEwen, with that wide run, he gets such a good run through the corner. And he's now slingshot himself round the outside and into the lead of the race. Brilliant move there from the year one racing driver. But he'll need to hope that maybe James Clark will hold off Adam Delmont. And there's a bit of contact. Oh, that's not really a place where you go for moves or try and make them stick. And I think Delmont realised that pretty much as he was going for the move and as he made contact. Hang on, I should probably back out of this. Whoa, my word. Out of nowhere, Dan Skinner, he was lucky there not to completely take out his teammate.
Yeah, he's held on by the skin of his teeth, hasn't he, as Dan, and he's just just about getting into the mix of it. But that's Jason Cooper just behind him now, and Adam McNally just ahead of him. One of them is his teammate, it's not Jason Cooper, and he'll be the one that he's fearing most, and he'll be the one that McNally and Delmont are hoping Skinner can hold up the most as well. It's getting a little bit complicated here, with so many drivers fighting for the same bit of tarmac, aren't they? Andy McEwen, just to go back on that move by Andy around the outside, James Clark, I thought at one point James Clark had defended that perfectly because it was going to be perfectly legal. With Andy going around the outside, James Clark mid-corner sort of forced him really out wide and took a load of speed through. And then unfortunately just sort of slowed the car up a little bit too much, and that allowed Andy to get his nose just ahead of him. But yeah, a little bit of a racecraft and race experience there from James Clark, just letting him down, I would say, in the vital moments. But it has allowed Andy McEwen to get on through. Jason Cooper is alongside and ahead, technically, of Dan Skinner. Can Dan do a bit of defence than James Clark? He looks like he's gone very narrow. That's going to allow Cooper to get for the cutback. And a nice drive out the corner is not going to be enough for Jason Cooper as they hop and skip over the curbs. Oh. It is looked like actually Jason Cooper does get the cutback. Really nice move by him.
That was very brave from Jason Cooper, because something like that, when you're fighting side by side through those S's, it can easily go wrong and send you out of the race. So well held. James Clark now battling it out with Adam Delmont, who has the inside line in towards this long hairpin right. Gets the move done nicely. I don't think there was too many sort of, too much of a fight from James Clark. As soon as he gave up the inside, he realised it's not worth squabbling. As soon as you do, you can lose so many more places. So slots into third place ahead of Adam McNally. Now Andy McEwen has got Adam Delmont for company, and we'll start to see the pace of Adam, which we saw in qualifying, really come through, and they'll be pretty much nose to tail by the end of this lap, I'm certain.
Ivan Bremer is, well, I wouldn't say labouring down in 10th place, because they're all part of this pack for about 4th position, aren't they? But he's just been off the pace slightly since a couple of early incidents. And the main reason why I like to give a highlight and a shout out to Bremer is not necessarily for the action that he's putting out there on circuit, even though that is very exciting as well. Mainly for that sim setup in that picture, the bottom left there, Ed. That is one hell of a machine, isn't it? And if he's driving on that tonight, I'm just wondering what on earth has he got on that 4th monitor up top? Has he got timings, do you reckon? Has he got our stream being played out there? I would love to get a little bit of a video from Bremer maybe sent over to us one day to have a little look at that, because it is an awesome bit of kit. Dan Skinner defending from his teammate Sylvester, though, who is, as I said at the beginning, not exactly had the best evening of it just yet, but he's probably hoping that to get a little bit of reverse grid look at least once for this over the next 4 races. Oh, over the next race, actually, because there's only 1 reverse grid left.
I see now, just watch this come through, and they are nose to tail. I keep worrying that there might be a little bit of contact and maybe race ending for Dan Skinner, but they managed to keep themselves just about sensible. Oh, as I say that, a bit of a late braking moment from Sylvester, who goes to the left of the circuit to avoid going into the back of Dan. That's the thing. It's so easily done just to outbrake yourself a touch. And what did I say? They'd be nose to tail? Well, they're more than just that. Actually, at the end of that last lap, they are now side by side through to turn 1. Door slightly open in towards the second corner of the right hander, but closed off by Andy. Adam Delmont, James Clark still in the mix, as is now Jason Cooper, who's muscled his way past Adam McNally there.
Yeah, sideways Adam McNally. We're starting to get used to him having puffs of smoke out of his rear end, aren't we? It's actually weird if we cut to him and he's not sideways at this point. Then we go a little bit further back. The fight for what is now basically the fight for 6th place, isn't it? The top 5 have pulled away somewhat, Ed, and they're all squabbling for the rest of the points, including an out of position Lars Fischer. He's in the middle of this little battle right now and can't seem to break through and break away.
Just watching him up and down, looking up and down as well at the other bits of the field as we see Andy McEwen. He's trying to force him all the way around the outside and needs to move held, but muscle his way around the outside and then to the inside through this next left-hander. Oh, and a bit of a hip check. I think Andy McEwen turned in thinking that the gap was already done. There was a space for him to go into, but no, Adam Delmont's car was still there. He thought it had already been overtaken. I think as he committed to the left-hander, and that sent him all the way down now into 4th place with his old sparring partner from the 2nd race for company, Adam McNally.
Yeah, and McNally's sending it, isn't he? He's basically got the entire course to get one up the inside of McEwen there. And to be fair, I'm not entirely sure if there were any of his wheel tracks actually still on the racing circuit, but he has got the position done for the time being. As Lars Fischer and Dan Skinner are the 2 drivers in amongst this sandwich of this new team who are yet to find out what the name is. We've been avoiding saying it all day. It involves Sylvester Hobson forever. I've absolutely no idea what the team is called though, because I wasn't notified that they were even joining the championship until I saw them 5 minutes before we go into the race. So I do apologise to those 3 drivers for not knowing your team name. Hopefully we'll get it at the beginning of next week. But they certainly have given us some entertainment. It's nice to see them filling up the paddock so nicely there. Ed, as McEwen gets past McNally.
Yeah, he's got back ahead, but all of that fighting has not helped either of them at all, as James Clark has now got a much greater advantage. And that front 3 is starting to break away with Delmont and Cooper and Clark starting to maybe work together a bit and not fight too hard. As I say that, though, Jason Cooper is right up the rear end of Adam Delmont and braking nice and late around the outside, going for a bit of a switchback maneuver. Can Cooper pull it off? Not quite. We'll have to stay in behind. And now we have got the sort of single file traffic through these S's before we get up to the real overtaking zone of that hairpin. We've seen so many drivers make lunging, diving moves. Not sure if we're going to see one of those from Jason Cooper. This is the corner where we did see Jason Cooper have that mistake, gets through that with no sliding whatsoever. And piling the pressure on Adam Delmont, he's forced to go defensive to cover off the inside line. A mid-corner slide actually there from Delmont, who runs slightly wide of the mark, but is able to carry plenty of momentum as a result of that slide and power out of the corner. Still in the lead of the race, but now with only 4 minutes to go of this race, it's going to be, I mean, it doesn't seem like a long time, but to fend off this man, Jason Cooper, it will be an age for Adam.
It will be. It's not like these two haven't done battle in the past. Over the course of the season, Adam Delmont is quite easily the driver who's taken the fight to the 5-star teammates and has caused himself to have a little bit of a fan club in YouTube and Facebook chat over the last couple of weeks as well. It hasn't always gone the Excite drivers' way, but equally it's nice to see a fresh face up there and fighting amongst them. It's a bit like the Verstappen against the Bottas and Hamilton era of F1, isn't it? Just to have another driver in there in the mix is always quite refreshing.
And it is great. It's great to see so many drivers coming in, and yeah, like you say, about a breath of fresh air to see certainly different drivers fighting up there, newcomers fighting. I mean, this is great to see, though, isn't it? A big old battle with Adam Delmont and Jason Cooper. James Clark still in the picture.
He is.
He could take the win. He's certainly looking good for a podium as it stands, but a win is totally not written off for James Clark. I believe that would be his first of the season. Lars Fischer here in behind newcomer Sylvester. Sylvester's actually putting up a great fight to defend, to hang on, but for how much longer can he hang on as Lars Fischer is filling his rearview mirrors, going to the right, going to the left. Everything he can do to throw off John, he is trying. Now around the outside in towards that final hairpin corner. We've seen break so late, so many times, and it seems to be another late breaking moment that is able to keep him in 6th place, just hanging on.
Yeah, he's doing really well, isn't he, actually, John? It's a bit of a shame we haven't seen more of him, but I'm sure he'll forgive us because the action up ahead has been so fast and frantic. But as they go too wide into T2, we are going to keep with them because I think Lars Fischer is going to get that move done. One of the few times we've seen that move actually being pulled off, isn't it, tonight? Ed, it seems like a bit of an obvious one because of the amount of overspeed that you can get through the final corner. But it's not always the easiest because you have to hang it around the outside and wait for the corner to come back to you.
Yeah, it is about just waiting, really. You have to wait and be patient to get these moves made off. And like you say, the track ebbs and flows so much, it's left and right, so you just have to wait until it comes for you where you can make that all-decisive move. Sometimes I've seen drivers go side by side for ages until that one corner comes up that drivers just can't hang it around the outside of. But I mean, well, trying to hang it around the outside of this corner for the umpteenth time, Jason Cooper isn't quite able to make it work against Adam Delmont. He gets a good run out of the corner, but through this left, then this right, and then this left. If you're not alongside, there's no hope for you whatsoever. And that is the case for Jason Cooper, who will slot and stay in behind, and they are breaking away now from James Clark.
They are indeed, and their lap times have been quite quick as well, about half a second quicker than the drivers behind them. On the previous lap anyway, but that was about the first lap that they decided not to throw 7 bells at each other. So if they do work together, these two are clearly very quick, but again, we always knew that, didn't we? We always knew these drivers were quick. That's not entirely surprising. Aaron Hobson and Colin Sansom. Aaron Hobson, a recovering driver, I think, at this point, getting past Colin Sansom, who, remember, did so well in race number 2, and that's probably where his night might peak. But again, it's a might, it's not quite confirmed yet, it could still get better. McNally hunkered up behind McEwen, and again, although he likes to get sideways, he's not side by side just yet with the year 1 driver. These two, like you said before, Ed, old sparring buddies, aren't they, in terms of their BSR rivalries. That and Delmont as well, with McEwen obviously running that number 1 car with that MX5 championship he took last year in the BSR. Well, I say last year, last championship. But it was a close run thing with Jason Cooper and the Excite drivers right behind him.
Yeah, it was very close, like you said. And I mean, I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing a repeat championship performance from Andy McEwen. He's already missed a couple of rounds so far, and that has put him pretty much out of contention. Still, though, within a shot of probably snagging a few more podiums and race wins maybe before the season is done. Looking for the race victory here tonight. Jason Cooper, he's tried this move so much, and I think Adam Delmont has firmly said, no, you're not going around the outside whatsoever.
Look, like, I mean, to me, I don't know about you, Ed, that looked like a touch of a brake check on the apex of the second, second apex. I don't know.
I don't know. I think because they were still alongside. It's difficult to brake check someone when they're around the outside of you.
Well, he was around the outside, and then it looked like they were trying to maybe get a cutback, and then, to me, looked like maybe it was a brake check. I don't know. I can't get a replay of it because no one actually overtook anybody. But it looked to me like a little bit cheeky, but cheeky is legal. Cheeky's fine. It's arguably just good race tactics. He's going to come across the line, though, this time round, and it is the checkered flag that's going to be waved in the eyes of Adam Delmont. He takes that top step of the podium, with Jason Cooper taking second place, and James Clark rounding out that podium. James Clark doing a great job, a little bit quicker than he has been over the course of this particular evening, and doing a great job of it. In fact, everybody really close together in that one. Not many drivers have fallen down the order, so we'll be able to bring you the random number generator for the reverse grid of the final right of the evening. Not my iRacing login details. It is still a 13 top end, so we're going to go between 7 and 13 for the final time. It's going to be a top 9, so we've had a fairly consistent amount of reverse grids so far. We've had 2 top 10s and now a top 9, so keep that in mind when we bring you the race results, which is in fact right now. So as Ed sends that off to the powers that be, I can confirm that Adam Delmont did take the race victory by half a second ahead of Jason Cooper. James Clark ended up on the podium, like I mentioned before, with Andy McEwen rounding out the top 4, with Adam McNally rounding out the top 5. Good little battle between those two drivers. As per usual, actually. They always provide fireworks when those two get together. Lars Fischer was in 6th after fighting his way through the pack. John Sylvester in 7th place. A little bit of a better performance from him. He hasn't quite got the reverse grid pole, but he is going to take advantage of the reverse grid for the first time this evening. Dan Skinner is in 8th with the pole position man being Ivan Bremer. Ewan Bremer? I'm not entirely sure. I do apologise, Bremer, if I'm saying it wrong. Dan Skinner also took the Pro-Am victory, by the way. Just forgot to mention that. Rounding out the top 10 will be Aaron Hobson. Colin Sansom rounding out the... winning the Am class and finishing in the top 11. Miles Owens was in 12th place, and Chris Dixon was the only driver that we didn't have a classification for on that one because he was 4 laps down. Technically puts him in 13th place, but he doesn't score any points or is eligible for a reverse grid. Right then, take a bit of a deep breath there, Ed. It's a hectic end to race number 3, just like it has been over the course of the last couple of races. To be honest, Sonoma is coming up strong, isn't it? It's a good track for these MX5s.
Yeah, it is, and I can't wait, to be fair, for the 4th and final race of the evening with a Pro-Am front row. That's going to be very exciting, isn't it, between Ivan Bremer and Dan Skinner? What a battle that will be. You don't want to go anywhere. That will be one to look out for and really raise the stakes in this already exciting and look forward to final race here at Sonoma.
It will be, and we'll be back just in a couple of minutes' time to catch the final race of the evening as well. So please don't go anywhere, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody, for the final time this evening for the BSR MX5 Trophy, round 7 here at Sonoma. It's the fourth race, I should say, actually, and it's a top 9 reverse grid. And, well, if you've been following the evening's action, you should know that that is going to be exciting, because the previous 2 reverse grid races have both been top 10. We even had the qualifying race, as I call it, which is the first race of the evening, dictated by qualifying. Even that was more exciting than usual, and I think it's something about Sonoma that really lends itself to this particular MX5 handling model. Andy McEwen might not like it in the interview, but I certainly do. Ivan Bremer, though, sits on pole position with Dan Skinner in 2nd place. It's a Pro-Am lockout at the front row. John Sylvester is in 3rd with Lars Fisher in 4th, Adam McNally in 5th with Andy McEwen in 6th, James Clark is 7th and Jason Cooper in top 8. Adam Delmont, who won race 3 of the evening, starts in 9th. Aaron Hobson rounds out the top 10 with 11th place, Colin Sansom and Miles Owen in 12th. 13th is Chris Dixon rounding out the field. Right, I do have Ed May alongside me. We were just getting into the race a little bit quicker there, but Ed, are you excited for the final race?
Oh, absolutely. Like we say, Pro-Am front row locker, Ivan Bremer and Dan Skinner. The new boy against the old favourite, who's going to come out on top into turn 1. The lights are going to go out very shortly. Let's get this underway.
Indeed we do, and it's a poor start by John Sylvester. Just didn't get moving at all, and that's allowed Lars Fisher to gain a 3 place. I mean, there's an argument to be said, Ed, that Lars Fisher's probably the favourite for this particular race, and for some reason my driver selector feature is jumping all over the place. So I'll try and select a driver and stick with them for more than half a second. But Dan Skinner gets into the race lead. Lars Fisher tries to put a move on him, but actually Adam McNally, sideways as ever, is almost into 3rd place, not the inside of a attacking Lars Fisher. He wasn't defending, though, was Lars, and that has put him down. He got a huge moment for Ivan Bremer, and we've said so often that Adam McNally was sideways for most of this race. He was sideways there, but he got it hooked back together, and I believe Ivan Bremer is all the way down in 13th place, and he's taken his teammate John Sylvester along for the ride with him. That's a big shame. We'll have a look back at that incident in a couple of minutes' time, but Dan Skinner leads the way by a good 1 second ahead of Lars Fisher, then Andy McEwen and Jason Cooper.
How on earth did Andy McEwen get through all of that unscathed? I was having a look and seeing all the different drivers around, keeping eyes on a few of them, keeping eyes on Lars Fisher and Jason Cooper. They managed to get through that in one piece miraculously, I must say. That would be great to look back at the start of the race from one of their points of view, because I'll tell you what, Andy McEwen was saying that he used up all of his 9 lives last season. Oh no, I think there's more, as there's been another incident. Oh, we've just peeled away, and I think it was for the race leader. Yes, Dan Skinner is all the way out of the race.
Yeah, Dan Skinner's actually just spawned back to the pits. Adam McNally was involved with it, and Miles Owens. I do horrendously apologise for my poor timing of the shooting away to have a look at the incident at the beginning of the race. Everybody's calmed down just a touch at the moment. It doesn't look like anybody's going to crash into each other for the time being. So I'm going to have a look at first the incident at the beginning of the race. Let's have a look at it. This is Ivan Bremer, remember, currently in 2nd. Does he just get loose on the rear end? Yeah, that's a massive slide, massive tank slapper. Comes into John Sylvester. And you're right, Andy McEwen was lucky to get through that. I think McNally's probably just about got away with it as well. And then if we look to Dan Skinner, what on earth happened here? He was on his own, Ed.
He was just all by himself, but then let's have a look.
Oh,
that is a very weird incident indeed, and he gets collected there by, I think, Delmont and McNally. Both of the other Excite drivers hit Dan Skinner. Oh my word, everyone's coming together. All teammates are bashing into each other. It just goes, and he keeps his foot pinned. You need to lift off a bit more, especially on cool tyres.
Scary view.
Oh my word. That is the one view a racer driver never wants to have, is looking back at a race circuit with everyone hurtling towards them. What you don't want to see is Jason Cooper up your inside if you're Andy McEwen, but he dealt with that pretty nicely, didn't he, Andy? Swinging it all the way around the outside and holding on against Jason Cooper. It is a 5-star 1st and 3rd. Not quite the 1-2 that we saw them start the evening with, but you got to say they are favourites to probably bookend the evening with a 1-2. especially with the gap that they have too. Adam Delmont in the background there in 4th place.
Yeah, and it looks like McEwen. Well, we saw it in the first race, actually, didn't we, Ed? That McEwen doesn't quite have the pace of the 2 drivers around him. So you get a sense of. It feels rude to say inevitability about this because they're all 3 of them are pro-am they're pro drivers for the BSR. But realistically, I think Andy McEwen would be the first to admit. In fact, he is always the first to admit that Jason Cooper is somewhat of an alien when it comes to MX5s and, well, sim racing in general. It's never a shame to lose to him, and at the moment, he's just not clicking with the car. But to be fair to him, holding off Cooper for the time being, and that's allowing Lars Fischer to try and pull a little bit of a gap, isn't it? 0.8 of a second now, the difference between the 2nd and 1st place man. We've already seen Lars Fischer take a race victory here today. It was just ahead of Jason Cooper. I'm sure Cooper will be hoping to reverse that particular result, but at the moment, needs to get past the year 1 driver.
Yeah, and he's not really succeeding at this moment in time. Maybe, though, Andy might actually let Cooper through, because then that'll allow him to close up to Lars Fischer. Never mind, though. They're going to continue to squabble. This time, Andy McEwen hanging it up the inside, but then that bump over the curb gets his car all unsettled onto the exit, and that sees Jason slingshot around the outside and make that move nice and cleanly. So now it is a 5-star 1-2 Lars Fischer ahead of Jason Cooper as they finished in the 1st race of the evening. And now Andy, with the slipstream and with the help of Jason Cooper, will be able to catch back up to the race leader. So it's still not over yet for Andy McEwen and his hopes of securing his 1st race victory of the season.
No, it's not, but he's going to have to do a bit of a Herculean effort to find some time because realistically, like we've mentioned before, he doesn't have the ultimate pace, and with 10 minutes to go, we know as soon as Cooper and Fischer latch onto the front and back of each other, they work so well as a team. They're not impenetrable. We have seen people beat them. We've seen people get in the middle of them. It's particularly Adam Delmont who's chasing. But they are a force to be reckoned with somewhat, aren't they, Ed? And that can sometimes be a bit of an intimidating factor for some of these drivers.
Just seeing how I thought he was going to. No, we've seen him try and make moves earlier. Is he going to try it now into this next corner here, the downhill left? We've seen it happen numerous times, haven't we, Jack? But I think he's just too far back.
Yeah.
Maybe into the hairpin. But what we've seen about Andy McEwen is that while he might not have the overall pace around the circuit, like you were saying, I think as soon as he gets in behind a driver, he can stick with them. He's got the pace to keep up with drivers. It's just not quite the pace to pull away around the circuit.
I was having a chat about this to someone today at an event that I was running. I wasn't running the event, I was running a simulator at an event. And I was chatting about this, and they said, you know, whenever they're sim racing or whenever they see people going out there on the circuit, you know, you can be lapping and doing maybe 2 seconds off the pace or something, and then you get behind someone, and all of a sudden these people seem to turn it on. It's like they can follow, but they can't do it themselves. And they're asking me why that is, and sometimes, if you're just a good learner, you have to be a very good learner to be able to just absorb the information that the driver ahead of you is doing and then translate it into what you can do as well. When you're following someone, you can see their braking zones, you can see their lines, you can see how the car handles, you sort of get a bit of a premonition of how your car is going to handle it as a result. The difficulty then is to translate that and do it whilst you're on your own. It's quite a classic technique though. When I was used to be racing in Genettas, very similar to the MX5s actually, a 1.8 litre engine, rear-wheel drive, little sports cars. We used to go out there, and if I was struggling around a circuit, I remember we did it at Silverstone, Donington Park actually, and we used to go out there and I was doing a certain lap time, let's for the sake of it call it a 1:05, it was much slower than that. And I couldn't get to the 1 minute. My brother would go out and he would do a 1:04 and just make me follow. I would follow and manage to do a 1:04. Then he would do a 1:03. You go out, you do a 1:03. You go out and do a 1:02. And all of a sudden, you're getting towards your optimal lap time. You don't even realise it, just because you're latched onto the back of another driver. And as I said, the skill comes to then translating that to doing it on your own as well. But that is a trait that a lot of drivers can get on with. It's basically coachability, isn't it, Ed? It's that ability to sort of take that information on board and regurgitate it. Yeah,
I mean, a driver that has been coached by probably one of the best in this car at the moment is Lars Fischer, obviously being helped out by Jason Cooper as his teammate. And now he's able to keep away and keep that gap at around about 7/10 of a second. It'll start to close in, I think, a bit more as Jason Cooper gets even further into that slipstreaming range. But for now, Lars Fischer is perfectly demonstrating what I was saying. He's been the driver that we have to say has been not as quick as Jason Cooper, but it's definitely getting quicker and quicker every time we see him. A real sort of development driver, I think it's fair to say, a driver that you have seen evolve over the course of the seasons here in the BSR, and he's already taken one race victory from Jason Cooper so far tonight. Are we going to see him take a second? And are we actually going to see, I think for the first time this season, an evening where Jason Cooper hasn't won a race?
Well, it'd be surprising, wouldn't it? Because I think the last round, we saw him take the perfect evening. We saw him take all 4 race victories, and then how the cookie crumbles. He only came second. It's shocking, isn't it? He's clearly letting his standards slip, and he needs to take a good, long, hard look in the mirror. No, I'm kidding, obviously.
Unacceptable, isn't it?
It is. It's despicable. But I think you're right, to be honest. I think Lars Fischer has stepped up his game since jumping into the BSR. I think quite often we sort of saw him and considered him as a rear gunner, a backup to Jason Cooper. That's certainly what he came into the championship as. This championship, though, he has, one, been attending more than Jason Cooper, therefore he's in a better position for the championship, and two, we've seen him on pace be deserved of the of race wins and race victories, and he's actually put moves on Jason Cooper when's needed as well, whereas before they would just run a little bit boring 1-2, whereas now they seem to be getting their elbows out just a touch. Speaking of getting their elbows out, Ed, we've all of a sudden gone from not having much going on to 2 battles in the top 4.
Battle for the podium here is the last spot on the podium between Andy McEwen and Adam Delmont. And Adam Delmont is really going for it now. He's piling the pressure on him. Is he going to go up the inside into this corner, a place where you rarely ever see moves being made? Well, he's going to go for it, and he's got alongside into the braking zone for that final hairpin. And McEwen is so late onto the brakes into this corner, and he's going to attempt to hang it around the outside, but it's so difficult through there, and he has to basically concede the corner, give it up, and allow Delmont through into third place. Goes the Excite Racing driver, Lars Fischer, clinging on to the lead of the race, but well, Jason Cooper is going to look to get the inside, which will then be the outside of the next corner. There's contact there, which you've just heard, and that's Delmont and McEwen.
Yeah,
and I think McEwen is slowing down to give Adam Delmont the position, but that was, oof. We didn't quite see what happens, but from what we've just seen there, I don't know. I think Andy McEwen is going up the inside. He doesn't run wide into Adam Delmont. For me, that's Adam Delmont turning into Andy McEwen.
I'm going to do the cardinal sin of broadcasting here. I'm going to rewind it so we get a bit of a better picture. There's a good run by McEwen, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure the gap's really there for that one. I think McEwen probably did.
Do you have a lot of time to see it coming?
He did, but he wasn't really alongside, was he? He was sort of looking up the inside, and then I think just got his spatial awareness wrong more than anything. He's done the sensible and correct thing, I would say, McEwen, by letting Delmont back through and then reigniting.
If we look at it from Andy's car, potentially once we see this fight calm down between Jason Cooper and Lars Fischer, maybe we'll be able to get a better look of it. That's usually the tell-all. If we see on board from Andy and what he sees, and if he was on board and saw that that was a move that shouldn't have been on, then we'll probably listen to him on that occasion. So he gives plenty of space, doesn't he? Plenty of space up the inside to Adam Delmont, who was on the inside and basically late on the brakes. That was his corner. Now in the slipstream, Andy McEwen is going to close up. And we've got 2 ways to go. You can go around the outside or around the inside. And I think you see up the inside. From there, it's probably 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I think Andy McEwen is doing the right thing to basically keep this fight going and make sure there's no hard feelings. But for me, I think that would have been maybe a racing incident. There's plenty of time for drivers to see. He doesn't basically go up the inside and misjudge anything. Keeps it close to that left-hand side of the track. But hey-ho, that's just sometimes the way things go in racing. They've all sorted out between themselves, and now Andy McEwen will go to fight with Delmont yet again. No driver lost out in that situation. This was Jason Cooper ahead of Lars Fischer.
just seeing how Jason Cooper actually got ahead of Lars Fisher, but it looked like it was just a good run out of the final corner. And I can't actually tell which way round they are at this point. I think Jason Cooper already has the first lead. Yes, he does. So just a good run through the final corner was how Jason Cooper got into the lead.
Yeah, but can he stay there? I think we've got a bit ways to go in this race still. We're not on the white flag lap. We will see the white flag next time by, so plenty of time for Lars Fisher to close down and try and get one over on his teammate and, I've got to say, probably rival for the championship.
Yes, absolutely. Probably got the end of this lap plus one more, I imagine. So about a lap and a half to go. Well, slightly less than that, actually, because we've got less than half a lap to go on this particular one. And Lars Fisher getting a really good run going into the penultimate corner. He's looking up the inside. He's always going to be a little bit ambitious then, but we have seen some people really late, far too late probably, on the brakes going into that penultimate corner. It might have just had Jason Cooper a little bit spooked going through there. I was just wondering whether they were going to come off the power and try and waste a couple of seconds, but no, 30 seconds is far too long to waste before they go across the line to finish the race. So it's going to be one more lap, and it's going to be Lars Fisher to try and force Jason Cooper into a mistake, something that he probably wouldn't have even crossed his mind at the beginning of the season.
I'm just having a look at seeing how close Delmont and McEwen are, and McEwen's dropped back a lot. Not in the fight for third place anymore. Fisher and Cooper, these are, I think, the closest cars out on track. The battle that we will have to follow till the end. It's, you know, a far shot to say that Jason Cooper wasn't going to be getting a race victory tonight, but he left it late. Still a few more corners to go. I think with the turn of pace he's been showing all evening long. In fact, he put it on pole. By that one mistake in race 2, he's certainly been quick, but just maybe a little bit unfortunate. And now we're going to see him at the end of this race probably take a well-earned race victory.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be another victory on the postage stamp of Jason Cooper, one that he's not lacking in them, is he? His tally chart is running off the scale at the moment for this particular championship, but not just this championship, of course. He was feared for many a month before we even got involved then, wasn't he? Because he was so strong in these MX5s. I mean, his iRacing is well above 6,000, and anybody out there who is into iRacing will know exactly what that is, a massive number. Most drivers are probably hovering around the 2,000 mark. So Jason Cooper with 6,200, and he's a very, very strong driver indeed. And that is evidenced today as he tows his teammate across the line to take a 5-star 1-2. But this time in race 4, they have bookended it the other way round. Jason Cooper with the top step, Lars Fisher with second place, and Adam Delmont has come across the line to take home third. McEwen ended up backing off completely. I'm not sure whether he backed off intentionally or whether he just got dropped. Either way, he ended up in 4th place. Colin Sansom looks like he's about to cross the line in to take home the Am victory, and Miles Owens actually is about to cross the line to take the Pro-Am victory. Owen, I believe, we saw earlier on getting a podium overall, a 2nd place actually, so a good night for Miles Owens in the Pro-Am category. Colin Sansom across the line to take another Am victory ahead of Chris Dixon. We'll bring you up to date with all of what's the final standings as we follow a rather stricken Chris Dixon across the line. But Ed, a great evening, fantastic racing here at Sonoma, and even though we've had the numbers dwindling slightly, we've boosted them back up tonight, and it's been well worth it.
Yeah, it has been really excellent to see newcomers going through and flourishing, it's fair to say. Already, Miles Owens has seen and tasted the victory celebrations for the podium here. Of course, had Chris Dixon up in the mix with the likes of John Sylvester, who comes to the championship. Just a shame he's been involved in a few incidents and accidents so far, but hopefully we will see him come and return. Same with Ivan Bremer. But John Sylvester, actually in the Pro-Am class, I believe, is going to take a Pro-Am victory.
Yeah, very good indeed. And, well, we'll be able to bring you the full results now, actually, to get that confirmed. Let's have a look at it. Jason Cooper then on the top step of the podium by 2.5 tenths ahead of his teammate Lars Fischer. A little bit of a bigger gap than there was in the first race between them, the other way round, obviously. Adam Delmont was in third in the end with Andy McEwen in fourth, like I mentioned before. Aaron Hobson was fifth with James Clark in sixth. Miles Owens taking that top step of the Pro-Am category at seventh overall. Colin Sanson with the Am victory in 8th, with Chris Dixon in 9th. And then we have a whole host of drivers who unfortunately haven't qualified for any points. John Sylvester, Dan Skinner, Ivan Bremer, and Adam McNally, unfortunately, not finishing the race. In fact, Dan Skinner, Ivan Bremer, and Adam McNally all got collected in the first lap incident, which saw them out the race. And John Sylvester, who we saw at the end rotating the circuit, only got out for the last 3 laps. Right, Ed, is there anybody to come in and have a chat to us? That is the ultimate question.
I am having a look, Jack, but I don't think I can see anyone, unfortunately. So if no one else comes in, we will have to say goodbye and see you all next week.
Indeed, yes. So it's going to look like we are back next week by all means, as per usual. We'll be back on Jacko Racing, same time, same place. A big thank you for watching. My name has been Jack Oliphant. I've had Ed May alongside me, and you've been watching the BSR MX5 Trophy Round 7 at Sonoma. We'll see you next week.